Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining. I feel like it's been a minute since we've had a webinar like this. This is a continuation of some of our conversations from earlier webinars on diversity, equity, inclusion, justice in the zoo and aquarium field. So I'm actually not going to say much more. This is part of a two webinar series of an AMZAP takeover of our webinar world. And so without further ado, I'm going to pass it off to Craig Saffoe, who is going to take over. Craig, you are up. And you're muted. Yeah, there you go.
Okay. All right. Sorry. Please forgive me. I'm a little technologically challenged as well. So thank you guys for allowing me to invade allowing us to invade your group, because I see several folks on here who are AMZAP members. So it's really nice to see. And I see other familiar faces too. So that's always nice to see. Thank you guys. I thought we would start this just because there's, as arrogant as I am and thinking that everybody knows everything that I'm up to, I recognize there may be several of you guys who aren't quite familiar with AMZAP and what we've tried to kick off here, but I'll try to do it very briefly so that we can go to discussion right afterwards, if that sounds good. So Kathayoon, am I able to share my screen?
I clicked and it said, sure. So give that a try.
Oh, okay. So I'm going to go with screen 2 here and say share. Hopefully you're not seeing my emails. You're seeing.
Nope. We see the right thing.
Okay, that's good. Nobody wants to see my emails. So AMZAP, we are the Association of Minority Zoo and Aquarium Professionals. This is just some information on where you can find us. I'm going to make sure that this Kathayoon and the Zoo Advisors crew has this information. So if you want it, you don't have to screenshot it or anything. You can find us pretty easily. We have a pretty simple mission. Our mission is to increase minority representation throughout the zoo and aquarium industry. We wanted to make sure that this mission stayed very simple, very focused, but very, very specific. So it's just to increase minority representation. Oh, there we go. What are we? I've explained this to some folks. In some ways, my wife gets mad at me because I say I'm just a big dumb animal guy. I've worked lions and tigers. I've worked big cats for 27 years, and I don't have any kind of professional experience in diversity and inclusion. I don't have any kind of special training like that. What I am is I'm a Black man who's been working in this field for 27 years. And so I have those experiences. And what I've found very recently, well, not very recently, but what I found through my journey is that there are a lot of us, a lot of minorities in this field who have had similar experiences that I've had. Not all bad, but not all positive either. And so that's what we are. We're a group trying to get together and see how we can make things a little bit better from our perspective. To do that, we have 2 objectives. We had to try to focus ourselves so that we didn't get just out of control and try to take on too many goals all at one time. We want to build a sense of community. That is an extremely important thing anywhere you go in life. I think that's a pretty understood sentiment, that I don't think many of us want to be in a group that's just our own demographic. I think we want to be in a diverse group. But there are times where you need to be around people who look like you, who sound like you, who have some of those same experiences that you have. Even if it's just to bounce off ideas like, man, am I crazy? Or did I just experience that? And sometimes to smack you into reality too, that, we're not as special as we think we are always. So to have that camaraderie is important. And then we also are focused on trying to bring in new people of color into this field. So as I've heard it described one time, I believe it was from, oh my gosh, I'm forgetting who said it, but that we are working on 2 pipelines: the pipeline of minority professionals currently in the field, making sure we nurture those folks and make them aware that they are seen, heard, and wanted in the field, and then working on the pipeline of people prospectively coming into the field. So, we want to make sure we nurture both pipelines. We wanted to, again, trying to stay as specific as we can, work on 4 core goals to get those things accomplished. Networking is pretty simple. To try to get to the people who are not yet in the field, outreach and mentoring. Mentoring, we also want to make sure that our current professionals remember mentors need mentoring as well. So if we want to try to keep our current professionals climbing the ladders, they'll need mentoring as well. And so we want to make sure that those are done there. So mentoring goes both ways towards outreach and professional development. Those are the things we're focused on. I think it is important that we make sure, especially as people get more familiar with a group like AMZAP, that we also highlight what we are not. Because what I've seen recently is that some people hear diversity group and they make it what they want it to be. And I completely understand that people wanting to do that. But again, we're trying to stay focused, because what I've seen in my years in this field is that groups like this tend to not do so well when they lose their focus and they start drifting and trying to take on too much, or they just lose steam. So we're not an injustice group. And what I mean by that is AMZAP is not designed to wag the finger at the zoo industry and say, you're not hiring enough Black people, or you're not hiring enough Hispanics, or any racial minority group. What we're saying is Black people, Hispanics, Asians, you're not applying in high enough numbers. Get out there and apply. For whatever reason, you're not applying. My own personal thought is that a lot of Black people don't apply because, and I'll just be frank with this group, when I talk to my friends, and even my friends that I grew up with, and they say, oh, you're still playing with lions and tigers, huh? And I say, well, I don't really play with lions and tigers, but yes, I'm still working with them. And they say, oh, that's for white people. White people do that stuff. And I go, no, that's the mentality we have to break out of. So it's not the fault of our majority group that works in zoos that there aren't enough minorities. This is my opinion. I think we need to apply in higher numbers, because I'm also a hiring official at our zoo. And I don't want to hire someone just because they're a minority. I want to hire someone because they're qualified, as do all of us. I'm sure, I hope that's who we want to hire. What I would really love to see, though, is in my stack of applications that I receive for an open position, I would like to see more than one minority applicant in there. I'd like to see our people competing for the positions. So that's what we're focused on trying to do there. We're not an injustice group saying somebody's not doing their job. I think it's important that we make it clear we're not a DEAI group. I've seen several acronyms for diversity and inclusion. We're not against DEAI. We're all for DEAI, but we are singularly focused on race and ethnicity. That does not mean that we don't welcome the LGBTQ community into our group. It doesn't mean that we don't welcome the disabled community into our group, religious communities into our group. But for any of those folks, we would say, please understand that our focus is race and ethnicity. Good example is last month, we spent a lot of time focusing on highlighting our Asian members, because last month was Asian Pacific Islander Heritage Month. This month, we focused on trying to celebrate our members of color who are, as we've kind of started calling them, double minorities. They're also LGBTQ. And so we want to make sure that people know that we recognize and we respect, and we want to try to help any other group that's out there, but we're focused on the issue of race and ethnicity. Also, it's important for people to know we're not discriminatory, and we never will be, as long as I'm involved in the group anyway. I've had lots of questions from people. Interestingly enough, I've had questions from people who who are not very interested in supporting a group like this because they think that it's anti-white, and we say to people, what gives you that idea? We're just focused on race and ethnicity. And I had one gentleman actually say to me, or say to us on a message board, that he's a white man in the zoo industry and he would never be allowed into a group like this because he's a white man. And we just went, why? Why would you think that? Everything that we've put out there says you need to be a professional in the zoo and aquarium industry. That's really the requirement. And then you need to agree with our mission. So, we won't discriminate. We have white members. We've gotten a lot of help from our white members. And we encourage white people who want to kind of get an idea of what some of our people have experienced to come on in. Also, people who just want to try to help. So those are some important who we are nots. By the numbers, if you've heard of AMZAP, we started out in February of this year. Well, we started blasting it out to the zoo world in February of this year. And I've been overwhelmed by the response. We've got, over 200 members, over 200 minority, or almost 200 minority members. We've got many institutions represented, across the country. Word is spreading, and we're just over the moon. Support organizations. We have put the word out there that we are trying to. It's a little cheeky, I guess, that we aren't looking for money from our support organizations. What we're looking for from our support organizations is to ride your success. So as I had to tell my bosses, I want to put the Smithsonian Sunburst on our website because the Smithsonian has street cred, in our field. And so if people see the Smithsonian Sunburst as a support organization, they're likely to take us more seriously. And so that's the approach that we've used with trying to get support organizations, organizations who are willing to put their reputation behind us. And from there, we're hoping that we grow and that we can be taken seriously. That is in a nutshell what AMZAP is. I wanted to try, I made it under 15 minutes. So so that is like a record for me. So I'm sorry I did kind of blow through that because I want to give us time to chat and give some of our members who are on here a chance to say, tell their story. One of the things that we found to be very successful is to let people tell their stories of why they think a group like this is important. I'd be happy to tell my story, but I know there are others on here and I don't want people to get sick of my voice. So Kathayoon, how would you like to proceed?
Yeah. Do you want to stop sharing your screen? So
let me hold on.
And we have one question that came in from the chat that I'll pose and then we can open it up. Martine wanted to know if all of your support orgs are based in the US.
Good question. Did I successfully stop sharing?
You did.
Okay, yay. They are based they're based in the US and Canada. Toronto Zoo did jump on as a support organization. We have one other support organization that is based in Europe, the Animal Concepts. But the Animal Concepts group works a lot with AZA accredited institutions. And we're not AZA exclusive, by the way, just to be clear with everybody. We're saying that people need members and support organizations need to be accredited. And we feel like that's extremely important because we don't want to leave out our facilities that may not be financially ready to be AZA accredited, may not be in a place where they're AZA accredited, but maybe they are accredited by ZAA, or maybe they are accredited by, we just saw another aquarium accrediting organization, Alliance, I think it is. But we know that there are other accrediting organizations, and we think about things like GFAS. So we think about our sanctuaries. But as far as branching out internationally, I don't think we're in a place where we can really even think about going international. That's where I think the gentleman who made the comment that I expressed earlier was coming from. He felt that as a white man, he is the minority if he goes to a zoo in South America and tries to work. And I agree, you probably are. So the issues are probably a little bit different, I would imagine. I don't know what the issues are in other countries. I'm an American, so I know what the issues are here. And so we're focused here. I did get a very interesting question from a former keeper in the UK who expressed that there are similar issues in the UK. And I think I would love to help, but I don't live in the UK, so I can't say that we're ready to help. And remember, big dumb animal guy from DC. So I'm not in a place where I can branch out. What I would say is that if the need is there in other countries, if people were interested in starting something like this with a similar goal, I'd be happy to share the model that we've used and any successes, and to share any failures that we've had, because we have hit some stumbling blocks along the way, and I'd be happy to share those. So while I would love to say we're international and we're doing all this great stuff internationally, we're not there yet. We may be at some point, and I love traveling. So, you know, if somebody says, hey, come to Scotland or something, and I'd be there in a minute, you know. So
thank you. So I think now would be a good time for maybe, 15, 20 minutes or so to hear from some of the steering committee members, we've, planted some of them in the audience to share their stories of, just like what you said, Craig, why is a group like this important? Why is it important to support an organization like this, to create one, to sustain it? If you continue to have questions, please throw them in the chat. I am monitoring that and keeping a list of questions on the side for the Q&A portion. So that is also an option available to you. But Buddha, do you want to kick things off, since I see you on my screen, and then we can tap some others?
Sure. Hello, everyone. Really appreciate having this platform to discuss some of our ideas and where we want to go with this. And we also fully recognize that we are going to need everybody to engage in it to make this a success, short term, long term. Myself, I'm originally from India, and I came to the US to pursue a career in zoo animal reproduction, or conservation reproduction. And coming from India itself, that whole field was not even open at that time. Nobody even thought of it. This is going back in the late 80s, when 89 is when I moved to the US to pursue my dream. Ever since, I've noticed that even within my own institution, the Smithsonian National Zoo at that time, and I still continue to work for Smithsonian with the Conservation Biology Institute, I would say I was maybe one of 3 people of color at that time. And that wasn't, I noticed it, recognized it, but I was very fortunate to have some mentors. Some of you might know those names, like Dave Wilt and Jogail Howard, who didn't hesitate to take me on, give me that mentorship, and put me in front of people from the leadership to be recognized for what you are and what you've done. Also gave me a lot of good lessons to what to look out for, and how do you present yourself and share your messages without offending people, especially when you are in a minority situation. Because that's one thing that we recognize, that when you walk into a room and you are one of somebody who stands out in a room of 100, it is very, very difficult for that person to open up their mouth and say, even if the best ideas they may come up with, it's going to be shut down very quickly. For me, those were some of the encouragements that I received, to the point that now I feel very comfortable. Like Craig says, whether it is good or bad, sometimes when you have some ideas, it is okay to put it out there in the public, amongst 200 people who don't look like you, don't speak like you, and say what happens. I think what brings us together is not where we are from, but the mission that we are all going towards. We care about animals, we care about the profession that we are in, and we want to help species as well as people. In my sense, it is almost like the species sort of is what we are all going towards to help. In doing so, we are also bringing along people to share your passion and empower them to do what you set out to do and do it 10 times better. That's what brought me, Craig and I, we talked about this a number of times. We have been in numerous situations where we have been showcased. I think it's a strong word to put in these days, but I think it's in fairness, that is what it is when you have a donor who's interested in saying, hey, we are doing something different. Who do they look around? Find somebody who doesn't look like it, right? Here's a guy from India or some South Africa, whoever it is, put them in front. It was very uneasy. I have mentioned this to my directors in the past. It was not easy to be in that situation, to be almost put in a glass cage to say, hey, look how beautiful we are doing. I think it's time to get past it. And all of us here have the ability to do it simply because of where we are in our profession and the chances we have gotten through our lifetime, that now we want to push more people to help realize their dream. And that is really what brings me to this group, because we have the momentum, all little ways, whether you bring in interns and give them a chance. We talk about funding funded internship programs, because to bring minorities into this community, we need to find a way to pay them, and not everyone can pay their way. We have been running internship programs. I've been managing interns for research for the last 25 years. 99.5% or 99.9% of the people who come in are Caucasian people who are able to pay their own cost for those 3 months. If I think we had the option to open the doors for high school students and others of minority, we can do a lot better in the coming years. So that's what I want to say. So thank you for your interest, and I'm very confident we can do this. I see some names, Eric Miller. Nice to see you, Eric. Really looking forward to working with all of you.
Thank you so much, Buddha. Craig, who do you want to tap next? There's 4 pages of people here. Do you see any other?
I scrolled through a little bit, so I'm just looking at the first page. Mara Rodriguez is on the line.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. So good to see so many faces. Craig, amazing job describing our organization. I'm proud to be a part of it. I work at America's Teaching Zoo, which is home to the Exotic Animal Training and Management Program at Moorpark College. I have been in the field for almost 30 years, and I've been thinking a lot about my experience as a Mexican American in this field. And it's changed a lot. I thought of something last night. I remember when I was in the Exotic Animal Training and Management Program, my hair was not blonde. This is simply because blonde covers gray better now. But I was in the Exotic Animal Training and Management Program, and I attended an IMATA conference because I really wanted to be a killer whale trainer. And that was one of the first times I realized, like, wow, apparently this is not for a Mexican, because I felt like I stood out so much at that conference. But I always use my positive attitude and my personality to kind of just get through all of those experiences, like many of you have. And I have realized in the last few years that there is a bit more diversity. And I feel extremely lucky to be working at a place where we are a pipeline for people who are interested in working with animals to come through and get their experience. What I would like to see is more applicants of color. And we're seeing that a little bit. And I feel like that's because social media and just search engines are allowing more people of color to find us. But I'm really proud of this organization because I feel it's necessary to give us all a voice, to bounce things off each other, and to also welcome more of us into this community. What I think is important to showcase is the mentorship program that AMZAP is hosting, because I think it's invaluable to inspire and motivate young people of color to follow their dreams. Because like Craig, I'm known as the cougar lady, the mountain lion lady, the tiger trainer. And when I would go to family reunions, my cousins would say, only crazy white people do that. And this is what I have experienced. And I've kind of blazed my own trail here, and I'm very proud of my experiences. I'm very proud of where I work. I'm very proud of this field. And I think this is long overdue, and I'm very grateful to Craig. The other thing, I have opportunities here at Moorpark College. I served for 5 years on the Equal Employment Opportunity Committee, where we came up and wrote protocols for district-wide accessibility for more people of color and diversity. So these are experiences that I'm excited to bring to the organization and to the field. And thank you so much, Craig, I knew you would call on me first. I had my hand on the unmute button. So thank you so much for letting me share. I am very proud to be here.
Thank you so much, Mara. It's funny, even hearing these, like you always hear new things, and I find myself nodding, like this idea of familial support, just emotional familial support, is so interesting, and could do a whole webinar on just that. Who is next, Craig? Maybe we'll take like one or two more.
Yeah, let's do that. I just wanted to tag on to Mara said something that really made me think, and so I know, like Buddha, I saw several faces or names on here that I recognize. I've been involved in field tag for about the last 20 years or however long. And like Mara and Buddha both said, I go to the field tag conferences, and unless Amos Morris is there, it's just me, and occasionally you'll see somebody else. I was in a conversation with a good friend of mine, someone I consider a good friend, during the field tag just a few years ago. We were walking around on Zoo Day, and I was expressing to that person that, wow, we just saw a Black keeper at that zoo. And I said, I'd really like to talk to more Black keepers. And they looked confused. This was a white colleague, and they looked a little confused, and they looked at me and they just said, but what does it matter? You're Craig, and I get it. I get it that, people who have seen me for 20 years, and like Buddha said, you kind of assimilate into the crowd and you're just you. But at the same time, almost every person who's involved in AMZAP that I've seen is super proud of their heritage. They really love the fact that they are Indian American, that they are Mexican American, that they are Black, whatever the case might be. And so that's something that I think we make it difficult on our white colleagues to recognize, because it gets very touchy. Race is such a touchy issue to talk about. And people go, well, I don't know, Craig, you look like you could be Mexican. And I go, well, I'm not. I've had Mexicans come up to me speaking Spanish, and I go, sorry, no hablo Espanol, that's all I know. And I have a few words that people have taught me, but just opening that dialogue about race is super important. And so I was able to with my friend from the field tag, but that was just something that Mara made me think of. I saw Anthony Rivera on here.
Anthony, oh, there he is, great.
Hey, Craig, how are you? Thank you. So, yeah, we're super excited to be part of this. I mean, it's super critical, right? As we talk about trying to introduce people to this industry, right? I am not from the animal world, right? So I'm different from Craig in the aspect of, I come from the business side of an aquarium, of a zoo, managing attractions, and the operations side of things, right? And for me personally, I never had the intent of entering this industry, right? I happened to come across the opportunity and became involved. And once involved, I started understanding how limited it was for individuals of the minority race, right? To a degree, right? And how the ability was there where there was interest for some. A lot of individuals did not understand, were not aware, right? So making another opportunity for not only a minority individual, but low income, right? I'm trying to understand how to evolve and grow was critically important for me personally to be able to communicate to my community. Which unfortunately, I guess to a degree, or fortunately to a degree, that community looked like me, right? So trying to help that group was critically important for me in regards to that, which is what brought me around to this group, right? This group being able to reach an audience and create awareness and opportunity was super important, especially when it became the mission of conservation, of helping our world oceans and animals became very important to me, right? And once introducing the youth to that and individuals that look like me to that type of environment, it became a new opportunity along those lines to not only help, but also career growth, right? An opportunity to become something that that was outside of their scope for a long period of time, or that they never knew existed. And that's truly important to me in regards to that. So having the talent of individuals that are on this call to be able to utilize and network with and be able to grow the opportunities in a scale that is beyond imagination, critically important, which is why this was important to me, right? I am the Senior Vice President of Operations and Hospitality at the Georgia Aquarium, and that allows for opportunity within itself, right? I am in a position to help foster change. I am empowered by my group, my president, to make change on that landscape, and trying to utilize that and be equipped with the understanding and resources available to make change was critically important. This group allows me to be able to do that, right? So why it's so valuable to me is those type of situations, right? And I think the welcoming environment that this brings, and I love, Craig, your point of this is not just for individuals that look like us, right? We need the whole community to be able to come together and foster the change that we're looking for as as a body, as a collective body, to foster the change, right? So the AI, critically important, absolutely, is something that we work for and we strive for, but it's a little bit bigger than that, right? It's more important that we gather some understandings and be able to build and support each other through the process. So for our bigger mission, right, which is we have bigger climate situations and human care issues that we're dealing with, and animal care issues. So managing all of that is super important, and I'm just glad to be part of this group. I'm proud that there was some bold action being taken, and I mentioned this yesterday on our call a little bit, but it's super important because people tend to freeze because they're afraid to make a mistake. And if we learn anything through this process, it's let's not be afraid to make mistakes. We're here to support each other to figure out how to do this. We're not, as Craig consistently reminds us, right? We're just learning this process as we go through it, and that's okay. We can learn together as a group. And I think we have enough talented people. As I scan through this core, there's a bunch of talent on here that we can utilize to help us identify how to take the next steps forward. And being available for that, I think, is super important and super great. And I'm proud to be associated with this group, and looking at me being a resource to anyone that needs that. I'm always available, but also how do we then move forward, right, as a group, and being able to reach out to anyone on this call and be able to say, hey, how are you doing this, or how can we navigate that, I think is important. So kudos to the group. Kudos to everyone on this call for being brave and bold and taking action to step up and make some next steps and figure out how do we take on these challenges we have. So thank you again for the opportunity, and looking forward to some great things from this group.
Thank you so much, Anthony. That was great. Craig, maybe one more person, and then we've got a slew of questions.
Sounds great. I see Nat Prado is on the line.
Hi, everybody. Sorry, I'm really cold in my office. I'm like all around bundled up. I'm up from a tropical people. I don't appreciate all this AC. Thank you, Craig. So my name's Natalia Prado. I'm a research biologist at National Zoo, and very similar story in that, I didn't know that a career in like zoo-based science was even a possibility until I sort of, out of luck and, perseverance, I like stumbled my way into it and was very happy to find that I could work with animals and sort of combine my love of science and biology for the betterment of animals. But I think I see my role in this organization as being one of mentorship, of as I progress in my career, understanding that I have been very lucky and been provided a lot of opportunities by mentors, all of them mostly white. So extending my hand and bringing people along with me as I progress and providing those stepping stones for the younger generation, because they often come in not on an even playing field. And so evening that playing field, knowing that I have to look beyond, resumes and grades, as people had to do for me as I advanced. I couldn't take internships, unpaid internships. And so my CV read very blank compared to some other people. So people had to take chances on me. And I see my role as being that, taking chances on people and giving them opportunities that they otherwise wouldn't get. And also as a Latina woman, from the family side, being a woman and a Hispanic woman, the expectations from within my family are very different from those of the men within my family. So balancing those expectations of what is expected of me within my family, and I get a lot of comments, I've told Craig this before, from my family of, but you're so smart. Like, what are you doing playing with poop all day? You're so smart, you could be doing so many things. And so I think just being visible, when I'm doing outreach for the zoo, or, I have family day at the zoo or something, my students are playing the games, the science games with the kids, I go talk to the parents, let them know that this is an avenue that their children can pursue and that it's a very challenging and rewarding field. And providing and just being a role model. I think that representation within the organization is very important because we are minorities. And so it's very easy to feel marginalized even within our own organizations. And so it does take our white colleagues to help us in our efforts, because we can't do it on our own. All of my upper management is white. So if they weren't on board, we wouldn't get anywhere. But also for youth, they're invalidated so often in the media with news coverage and everyday prejudices and discrimination that they face, that being able to show a positive side and positive role they can play within their society is really important. And I really see this organization as really taking a positive step in that, and stepping into a void that we had, and in highlighting and celebrating the diversity within the zoo field.
Thank you, Nat. That was great. And I have a lot of feelings right now that I'm probably going to need to talk to a therapist about. That was really, really spot on. So one of the questions that came through early on in the chat, maybe we can just give a short answer to this, Craig, or anyone, is what is expected of support organizations? You said there's no financial commitment, but what does that mean to be a support org?
I'd like that you qualified a short answer to it. That's good. A support organization is really just literally saying that you support that mission that I put up earlier. That's it. And knowing that what we're doing, and I want to be transparent about it, what we're doing is riding your coattails of success. So when, probably when Smithsonian agreed to hop on, it was, because the sunbursts carries a lot of weight, with people. When our smaller zoos sign on, that's big for us. What we're hoping you get out of it is at least a visible show of support for a diversity initiative. One of the things that I love that everybody's coming up with all these diversity statements. We love diversity. We love diversity. Well, what are you doing? You know, and eventually we're going to have some asks of our support organizations. They will not be financial because as the Smithsonian employees, I love my people, but I'm not getting fired for them. And if I try to take money for starting an organization, I'm going to get fired. So we cannot touch money at this point. We're not a 501c3. We want to get to that point at somewhere down the line, but we're not there yet. So everything we're doing is volunteer based. It's using our network as a resource for you guys, you know, for whatever you need. If you have minority employees, we do ask our support organizations to make it clear to their employees that if they want to be involved in a group like this, to get involved. We were fortunate enough to speak to Scott Terrell at Disney. And when I was talking to him, he asked the quintessential question, what can I do as an old white guy? What can I do? You know, and I said, well, Scott, do your people who work under you know that you're supportive? And he thought they were. And I let him know that a lot of our applicants who were Disney employees were using their Gmail account. They weren't using their Disney accounts. And more than one of them who I asked why, they said, I don't know that I'm allowed to. And so when I told him that, he was like, that's one of our 5 pillars of success at Disney, you know, and he was really adamant about it. And he immediately shot out a note to all of his employees that Disney is supportive. So we would ask for you to help us spread the word like that, because what you guys as senior managers think your employees know, they don't always know that you're behind it. So trickle that word down and make sure that you know, your guys know what's going on. So supporting us in that sense is what we're looking for from our support organizations at this point.
Thank you. That was great. I would love to steal the mic for a second and ask a question that you glibly, you know, kind of mentioned, but I'd like to throw it out to the larger group because this is something that comes up all the time. You know, well-meaning, well-intentioned, but, you know, allied white people want to know, like, what do I do? Like, I have power, I have privilege, I have interest, I have, you know, compassion. Like, how can I support this cause? Not just AMZAP, right? But this cause within our field. And I would love to hear some of all of your perspectives on what you wish white people would do or what you wish they knew about how to help and assist in this effort.
Craig, can I take a crack at it?
Yeah, I was going to say somebody else go first. I have thoughts, but I'll come at them afterwards.
I think personally, I mean, I do have a lot of Caucasian friends and very close friends. And luckily, I've been exposed to a lot of diversity in terms of both my professional venue versus my personal. I've always sought out that sort of a mix in my life because there's so much we need to learn about other people or diversity of other folks and what it means to them and what are the values of some of those things. Because like Natalia said, there are certain cultures, there are certain expectations of men and women. How even not just the own community looks at, even the outside community looks, because if that's the picture you're painting, see how, you know, understand how other people are going to look at it. So when people ask about, you know, white folks ask about how they can help, is the first thing I say, at least from our own community in the zoo and aquarium world, is that if you look around, 95% of the leadership within AZA and aquariums is all white men or women. Women, after a long time, now they're rising up. Again, we have to recognize that too, right? It's not just diversity that we are talking about. For a long time, even women were not in power within AZA. So that's a big change, and it's increasing the proportion of women that are coming on board to be leadership in the positions. So that leadership is what is going to help diversity shift and diversity rise up to the next level and the next level to be future leaders. So purely from the zoo community, I would say we want a lot of them to take on minorities as their mentees, walk them through it, right? Give them the opportunity. I use my own example, my mentors who put me in front of situations of leadership positions to be shown yes, to some extent to showcase, but I see the benefit of that at that time, that gave me opportunity to interact with some of the leaders in the community, which I would have been shunned if I didn't have the chance to do it. So that's one, really giving the opportunity. And Craig mentioned, you all know that community also has a lot of network in place, because we continue to talk about the resource needs. Of course, the association per se, we cannot receive funds, but through your connections and through your institutions, engage in finding those additional resources. We're not asking 100 interns every year. If each institution were to even cheerlead 1 or 2 interns of diversity to represent diversity on an annual basis, funded, I think given the number of institutions we have on board, and we can make a huge difference moving forward. So those are 2 simple things that comes to my mind. I'm sure that others have a lot of other ideas. I'm just going to pass it on. Thank you.
Thanks. Anyone else have an idea? Don't have to be an AMZAP person or affiliated person yet, but yeah.
I have thoughts, of course, because that's what I do. But if anybody else raises their hands, they take precedence over me continuing to talk. When I think about it a lot, I think about, like Buddha said, I think about women's issues. And I try to put myself in the shoes of a woman at times where women are having extreme issues. I can't experience what a woman goes through, the kind of harassment, the kind of issues that women go through. However, I can say, how can I help? And my mind immediately goes, I have a mother, I have sisters, I have a daughter, all people who I care extremely about. Let me listen to your issue and let me listen unbiased. Sometimes it just takes somebody to listen and ask the appropriate questions. So my boss, one of my mentors, Brandy Smith, will come by my office sometimes and we'll be chatting and she'll say, I have this question for you, but I'm really timid to ask it because I don't want to offend you. Well, just ask and have a frank conversation with me. Don't be afraid to talk to me about my race or my heritage. I mean, obviously there are some things you can say that will offend me, but if we have a tactful conversation about it, try to see things. You'll never be able to see things through my eyes as a Black man, but you will be able to get some idea about what my experiences are. And if you show me that you care to that degree, I mean, that speaks volumes to what our relationship can be. So if you have employees who might seem a little bit maybe abrasive or disgruntled, or ask them what's going on, particularly around events like last year. A lot of the comments that I'm getting from our group members are, I got no support from my institution, during the summer of last year. And I think we saw a lot of diversity statements come out that say, "Hey, we love Black people," but a lot of the Black employees were sitting there going, "I'm not feeling it." I feel that people almost want to avoid conversations with me because they don't want to see my emotion come out. Emotion will come out, and it's going to be charged sometimes. And if you can stand there and say, and knowingly, I'm not a part of that environment that's making you feel miserable, but I'm willing to let you express yourself to me, that can make our friendship go leap miles, and when we can have some really meaningful discussions after that. It's one of my thoughts.
Great.
If I can add something, I would say, look past the resume. There are gaps not because of lack of talent, but just because of lack, circumstances people find themselves in. But also, if you're in a room, like in our meeting, some of the most powerful experiences for me that gave me confidence, as being a minority in a large room sometimes, was having those mentors say, no, come sit at the table. Like, stop standing in the back, come sit here. Or like, well, Natalia had a good point about that, and why don't you share that with the group? So just asking people to join, to feel included, to feel as part of the whole, I think can be very powerful and give them that confidence to speak up more, to let themselves be more visible. and it could permeate the rest of their, career and their life. And it's that active, there's not a lot of like, let me sit here and wait for the applications to come to my desk. It's actively out seeking the minorities and seeking inclusion. Inclusion is a verb. You must actively pull those people in to the group and ask them to voice their opinion, because they often don't feel like they have a voice and cannot speak up. So we must empower them. You have a voice, your opinion matters, and I am interested in hearing what you have to say and your perspective.
Thank you. I'm going to pull a question from the chat. If you haven't been looking at the chat, it's pretty lit. So I would scroll through and read some of those comments. But Kaden has a question. As an educator, do you have advice on how to make sure my students see diversity within the field? Like a slide with a diverse group of people doing their jobs, which I love because we've all been there.
I'd put a shameless plug in. So one of the things that we ended up being able to do for this site, so I'm just making sure I don't go way over time, is that initially when we brought the proposal for this group out to our senior leadership at the Smithsonian, there was a lot of trepidation, a lot of, ooh, I don't know if we can do that, because all we wanted to do was show our profiles on and we chose to ask to put them on the Smithsonian's webpage, which probably was a bit of a, in hindsight, a bit of a far reach to say, hey, put all your minority employees on your webpage, and whoa, that's a big ask. But to highlight us, we could think of little ways to do it. But when we were told no, I got a little bit irritated. So I went and I said, well, I'm going to buy a website. And then my wife said, okay, buy a website. So we bought a website. And when we bought the website, we were like, oh, wow, this is a great resource. And we were able to, with that website, just plaster it with our minority members. And so we beg our minority members to send us photos of them doing their jobs, just for that reason, Kaden, so that we can have our people who are looking to get into the field, and I'll say it, it's one of those common jokes that goes around, oh, Black people can't swim. Oh, well, we've got a Black aquarist swimming with a nurse shark as one of our big blow up photos, on there, and I get that that's just a thing, but we've got people doing everything from Natalia doing her poop crushing to the aquarists to of course I chose a photo that's like 15 years old, but walking with a cheetah, because I'm not putting a picture of my gray-haired self on there, but we try to get people of color represented on there, and just for that reason, Kaden, so that anybody who wanted to visit our website can look on there and immediately see all these people of color doing animal work, doing these jobs that are really cool. And we just hope that continues to grow.
Mara, I saw you unmute. Was that purposeful or unpurposeful?
I just want to add something here. Sorry. Can I?
Go ahead. Yeah.
One thing that comes to my mind is something that we published in a sort of maybe it's a textbook about how the community or even the students in high schools and middle schools see who a scientist is. I mean, I'll be happy to share with that paper. And it's a drawing where when people went into local zoo, this is in DC, schools, and asked them to draw a scientist, they all drew a white person, balding, glasses, and white coat. And we had a person, Bert Davis, some of you may know, he was one of our scientists at the Smithsonian at that time when I came on board in '92. And he and a few other people went. So there's women who went in, Caucasian women, Bert Davis, and Caucasian men, all of them went into these high school and middle schools. And a year or two later, when we asked them, well, now can you draw how do you visualize a person? They all drew women, they all drew color people, right? So showing pictures, plastering pictures is one way. I think that's an easier way to showcase what it is. But nowadays it's really taken a different, I cringe when I see political ads these days come and showing all different colors, right? It's almost like presenting it commercials on TV. is all showing that. It's almost sort of going overboard to sort of, I don't know, almost like belittling the whole idea. So from an institution perspective, what I would like to see and request is that if you have people of minorities and diversity representing, give them a chance to get up front, because picture is one thing, but when people see them doing a certain job, that has a completely different reaction, and that stimulates in these people who may then say, you know what, I want to be like that person. I want to be able to do that work. And that is something that I would love for all of us in this profession to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Buddha. And Mara, I see that you have thrown a resource in the chat. Much appreciated. Do you want to say anything about that resource before I close us out?
Yes, I just think that we've really tried to promote diversity here in all of our media. And we had a video made to promote our exotic animal training and management program that from start to finish, really the goal was to reach out to the most diverse population as possible. And it's wonderful. Our college president is a gay Black man. So from top to bottom, we are really promoting, that inclusion across the board. And just wanted to share that for anybody who works with young people. This video is really a promotion of how to get into a career with animals.
Thank you so much. The hour has flown by. We are butting up against the end of our time, but luckily this is not the last conversation we're going to have about this. Next week, we are going to continue the conversation with AMZAP for the takeover part 2. If you have not signed up, a lot of you I know signed up for both. Thank you so much. Tell all your friends how cool this one was, and bring another friend, bring a board member, bring your favorite volunteer, anyone you can reach to this conversation, because as we keep saying, the more the merrier, and the more input, the better. And the more we hear these stories, the more they seep in and start to permeate our practices. So Craig, you want to tell us what we're going to be doing next week?
Next week, we'll be listening to you guys largely about what your thoughts are on groups like this, and where you think we can do things slightly differently or keep doing things the same. And we'll continue. I'll try to get more of our members to log on, because we've heard some great ideas, but some of the same sentiments of what we think you can do as white people to help us get these goals accomplished, and people in positions of power. So it'll be much more of a back and forth next week. We'd love to have more of your voices coming at us.
And I think I would love to talk a little bit about how we can knit together some of these DEI efforts that are happening across the field, right? And try to align some of our outcomes to amplify our success. So excited to see you all next week. Have a wonderful rest of your Thursday. And thank you so much to Craig and Buddha and Mara and Anthony and everyone who came and shared their stories. We appreciate you so much. Thank you all.
Thank you guys for giving us a platform.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.